Okay, so now we come to the third tetrad in mindfulness of breathing. So this says, I shall breathe in, experiencing the mind. This is, the word mind here is citta. I shall breathe out, experiencing the mind. I shall breathe in, gladdening the mind. Then he trains thus, I shall breathe out, gladdening the mind. So it seems that in this phase, the sort of focus point is on experiencing the state of mind as one is breathing in and out. Perhaps one could take this as an awareness of the thoughts that are occurring in the mind. But it seems that, again, the focus shouldn't be on discerning and distinguishing the individual thoughts the way one would do so if one is deliberately practicing Citta-Nupassana, contemplation of mind as a primary meditation object. But just if any particular states of mind become prominent, one just becomes aware of them, then lets them go and brings the mind back to the in and out breathing. So this is training in, breathing out, experiencing the mind. But then a more significant stage comes with the next phrase, which is gladdening the mind. I'm not so sure that I like the word gladdening, because the Pali has a richer meaning than the English word glad. You know, I'm glad to see you. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. But this is a more really joyful, exhilarating experience. Chit abhipamodayang, I think is the Pali. Yeah, the word is abhipamodayang, which, what grammatical form is it? Okay, it's a present participle, nominative singular. Okay, that's not important. But it's based upon the root mood, which has the sense of joy, to experience joy. And so from this root mood, we get, in the Brahmaviharas, we get mudita, which is sometimes translated sympathetic joy, altruistic joy, appreciative joy. And then we get two related nouns, pamoja and pamudita, which both have the sense of joy. And so these are closely connected with piti, with rapture. So this expression seems to be a parallel to the experience of rapture in the previous tetrad. So this is, let's say, when one is experiencing the mind, the first stage, then one is becoming aware of any particular mind states that arise. One is letting them go, and bringing the mind back to the breath, being aware of breathing in, breathing out. Then as the mind becomes more focused upon the breath, then this joy arises. And then at a certain point, one could almost like deliberately suffuse the mind with that sense of joy. And so this would be, the way I understand, breathing in, let's get rid of gladdening, rejoicing the mind. Does that make sense? I shall breathe out, rejoicing the mind. So suffusing the mind with joy, with bliss. Okay, but now there seems to be a progression taking place in the next step, which is, he trains thus, I shall breathe in, concentrating the mind. I shall breathe out, concentrating the mind. So here, the focus is not getting, even though in the second stage one is suffusing the mind with the joy, but now, since once the mind has become uplifted with joy, one doesn't want to let the mind become attached and carried away by the exhilarating experience of joy. And so one even lets the joy go and just concentrates the mind more and more, I say gently, but continuously on the breath. So concentrating the mind doesn't mean that one forcefully pushes the mind onto the breath, but one just breathes in, breathes out mindfully, and lets the mind sort of rest continuously, uninterruptedly on the breath, coming in and going out. And the word here, which is translated concentrating, samadhahang, is also, it's a present participle which is related to the noun samadhi. So the implication here, when you read through the original Pali text into the relationship between the verbal expressions and the nouns that they are connected to, you see that the emphasis is upon the deepening of the samadhi experience through mindfulness of breathing. And so probably we could see here a movement into the jhana being suggested. Even though the relationship of these stages to jhana, it's not made explicit within the Ānāpānasati Sutta. Nothing is said, at this point the meditator achieves the first jhana, at this point the second jhana. But it seems that just from the use of the words, that the implication is that one is going at least into access concentration, if not yet going into full concentration, into full jhana. Okay, then the next expression, or next step in the process, he trains thus, I shall breathe in, liberating the mind. He trains thus, I shall breathe out, liberating the mind. And here, if one just reads this on its face value, one can misinterpret the statement. Okay, the expression used. Okay, the word that's used to describe the process, vimochayang, That's the word which is rendered as liberating the mind. And from this we get two possible nouns, either vimokha or vimutti, which both can be translated as liberation. Okay, now if you're reading this sort of and interpreting just on the surface, just on the apparent meaning, it seems to be saying that at this point one is attaining, the ultimate liberation of the mind. But I don't think that's the actual intention here, because this is a 16-step process of training, and one is still, if one could see sort of reading into what's being described here, it's a process of deepening concentration. The text hasn't yet brought in any insight practice. And so what seems to be intended, and this is the way the commentary will explain it, is that one is liberating or releasing the mind, dropping, letting go of successively coarser factors as one progresses into deeper samadhi, deeper concentration. So initially, one liberates the mind by letting go of giving up the 5 mental hindrances, sensual desire, ill will, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness, doubt. Then, as one enters into the first jhana, and one wants to move to the second jhana, then one has to give up, release the mind from the coarser jhana factors, thought and examination, vitakka and vichara. Then as one progresses to the third jhana, then one has to liberate the mind even from rapture and go enter a state of pure, blissful pleasure. And then to go from the third jhana to the fourth jhana, one has to liberate the mind from that pleasant feeling and go towards the feeling which is neither pleasant nor painful, the neutral or equanimous feeling. So this seems to be not the permanent, irreversible liberation of the destruction of the defilements, but this is a temporary liberation into samadhi through deepened concentration and the giving up of successfully coarser factors of the mind, the factors which are constricting the mind. Okay, at this point I'll ask whether there's any questions on anything that's been covered so far. And just as a sort of overall statement to sum up the first 3 sectors of mindfulness of breathing. This will be actually starting from paragraph 17 through paragraph or section 20. It seems to me that these sections are all concerned with the deepening of samadhi, or with the practice of what is called samatha, that is tranquility meditation, serenity meditation, not yet with the practice of insight or vipassana.